Submarine Dreams, A Journey to the Depths and Beyond. The sun was setting over the bustling streets of Hart Avenue, as Chris, a seasoned man approaching his 50th birthday, sat in the community area with his friends Aaron and Tommy. The trio were indulging in some beers and lines, catching up on old times and discussing Chris's upcoming birthday bash. As they reminisced, Aaron brought up the recent news of the Titan submersible that had tragically imploded while attempting to visit the Titanic. The conversation took a darker turn, as they discussed the dangers of exploring the deep sea. Tommy had to excuse himself to attend to some business, leaving Chris and Aaron alone. Suddenly, an Indian man named Ruby, who was not well received by the residents of Hart Avenue, approached them. Despite being an astrophysicist with a sharp intellect, he was disliked by many in the neighborhood. He joined in on their conversation, mentioning his own plans to visit the Titanic with the help of blueprints he always carried in his back pocket. As he spoke, he carelessly blew vape smoke in Chris's face, and to make matters worse, his dog Boris defecated on Chris's shoes. After saying their farewells, Chris and Aaron made plans to meet the following day for another round of lines and beers. Aaron even suggested they try smoking crack. As Chris went home and took a bath, his mind was consumed with thoughts of the conversation with Ruby. What no one knew was that Chris's ultimate dream was to visit the Titanic, and every night in the bathtub, he would imagine himself as a submarine. That night, Chris made a life-changing decision: he needed to obtain those blueprints. He went to bed, dreaming of becoming a submarine boy. The next day, Aaron made his way to Chris's condo by crossing over from his own balcony, as they were neighbors. He brought some treats and they indulged in the substance, with a nervous yet excited Aaron eventually succumbing to nausea. After their lines, they chatted and drank a few beers. Aaron indulged in a line that hit him with such intensity that one of his eyeballs popped out of its socket, hanging there in a rather inconvenient manner. With a nonchalant tone, Aaron remarked, "Well, that's annoying," and proceeded to superglue the eyeball back in place as if it were just another regular occurrence in their lives. He then suddenly pulled out a sizable rock of crack, sending Chris into a state of euphoria. As he took a deep drag and exhaled, his eyeballs nearly popped out of his head. In a moment of impulsive excitement, he dashed downstairs to the communal area and violently punched Ruby and Boris, snatching the blueprints from Ruby's pocket. He then raced back to his condo and excitedly told Aaron they needed to get to work. They hopped onto Aaron's gold-rimmed bicycle and headed to their friend's restaurant, Deaf Man, also known as the Tasty Burger on Queen Mary Street in Vanier, Ottawa. Despite its reputation as the worst burger joint in town, Chris had a soft spot for their chicken burger, which was essentially just chicken strips between two slices of bread. As the restaurant was closing, Aaron and Chris assumed they could use some of the kitchen equipment to build their submarine. At least, that's what they thought Deaf Man had said, but they couldn't be entirely sure as he was deaf. Undeterred, they got to work with the help of regular deliveries from Tommy, who provided them with the necessary substances. It took them 6 grueling weeks of non-stop labor and no sleep, but they finally completed their submarine. While it may not have been the most well-crafted vessel, it was theirs. As Aaron hugged Chris and told him, "We're going to make your dreams come true today, my friend. You're like a brother to me." Chris expressed his gratitude and said they just needed an engine, which he knew exactly where to get. Chris led them to the back of the Tasty Burger and pointed to an old silver Toyota Corolla. "That's the engine we're going to use," he declared confidently. After loading the engine into the submarine, they called Tommy to make a delivery. He also assisted them in loading the submarine onto his car and driving them to the ocean. Upon arrival, they lowered the submarine into the water, and Aaron placed a hand on Chris's shoulder. "This is something you need to do on your own, my friend. This is your dream," he said, giving Chris a heartfelt hug. Tommy also had a special gift for Chris: 7 pounds of cocaine. "This is for you, my friend." "You make me proud," Tommy said with emotion. Chris was at a loss for words. He loaded the cocaine into the sub, joking that it would suppress his hunger so he wouldn't need to eat. With a final hug from Aaron and a 48-pack of beer, Chris descended into the water, ready for his exhilarating journey. He waved goodbye to his friends with a sense of excitement and anticipation for what was to come. The journey was expected to take 4 days, during which Chris snorted lines and drank beer, although it was hard to keep track of how much or for how long. Suddenly, he arrived at the Titanic. Chris was in awe, his eyes wide with amazement and perhaps a little from the cocaine. He was really there, at the Titanic. However, he realized he had no way to get back up. Panic began to set in as Chris sat at the bottom of the ocean, surrounded by the souls who had passed away hundreds of years ago on the Titanic, including the Titan submersible. In a moment of desperation, he snorted the remainder of his drugs, and his mind began to race. He remembered an episode of Bill Nye, the Science Guy, and playing Super Mario, where Mario transforms into a balloon. With newfound determination, Chris grabbed the oxygen tank, inhaling it all in one breath. He began to inflate like a giant balloon, causing the submarine to float back up to the surface. As he resurfaced, Tommy and Aaron were waiting for him, overjoyed to see their friend and his incredible story.